A rainy morning at Riverside Medical Center. The morning rain drummed against the windows of Riverside Medical Center as Olivia Mitchell rushed through the main entrance, her umbrella dripping water across the polished floor. At 27 years old, she had dedicated 5 years of her life to nursing, and every single day felt like a blessing rather than a job. Her warm brown eyes sparkled with genuine care as she waved to the security guard, remembering to ask about his daughter's college applications. Olivia's co-workers often joked that she had a photographic memory for kindness. She remembered patient birthdays, favorite flowers, and the names of family members who visited. Her shoulder-length auburn hair was always pulled back in a neat bun, and her scrubs were decorated with tiny cartoon hearts that made children smile during their difficult hospital stays. Working in the cardiac care unit meant dealing with life and death daily, but Olivia approached each shift with unwavering optimism. The mysterious envelope. After changing into fresh scrubs, Olivia opened her locker and froze. A cream-colored envelope rested on top of her belongings, her name written in elegant calligraphy across the front. The paper felt expensive, almost silky between her fingers. Her heartbeat quickened as she carefully opened it, revealing a handwritten note inside. In the quiet moments when most people rush past, you stop to truly see others. Your kindness is not performed but genuine, flowing from a heart that refuses to become hardened by the difficulties of this profession. You are a rare light in a world that desperately needs more brightness. Olivia read the words 3 times, her cheeks flushing pink. There was no signature, no hint of who had written such beautiful sentiments. Her best friend and fellow nurse, Tessa Morgan, appeared beside her locker with 2 cups of coffee from the break room. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Tessa observed, her sharp green eyes missing nothing. Tessa was the opposite of Olivia in many ways. Bold where Olivia was gentle, outspoken where Olivia was diplomatic, with short black hair styled in an edgy cut that perfectly matched her confident personality. Olivia wordlessly handed her the letter. Tessa read it quickly, her eyebrows rising higher with each sentence. "Someone has been paying very close attention to you. This is not just a casual crush. Whoever wrote this has been watching you, studying you, understanding who you truly are." "That sounds slightly creepy when you say it like that," Olivia whispered, tucking the letter carefully into her pocket. "Or incredibly romantic," Tessa countered with a knowing smile. "Come on, we have morning rounds. But I expect a full investigation into this mystery admirer situation." The cold billionaire's arrival. The cardiac care unit operated with its usual controlled chaos throughout the morning. Olivia moved from room to room, checking vital signs, administering medications, and offering comfort to worried families. She was helping Mrs. Patterson sit up for breakfast when she heard the distinctive change in atmosphere that swept through the hallway. Conversations became quieter, postures straightened, and nervous energy filled the air. Sebastian Hayes was making his rounds. Olivia had only encountered the hospital owner twice in her 5 years at Riverside Medical Center. He was a legend whispered about in break rooms and staff meetings. At 36 years old, Sebastian had inherited Hayes Medical Holdings from his father and transformed it into a healthcare empire spanning 12 states. He was known for his brilliant business mind, his ruthless efficiency, and his complete lack of emotional warmth. She finished settling Mrs. Patterson and stepped into the hallway just as Sebastian passed. He stood well over 6 feet tall, his dark hair styled with precision, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than she earned in 3 months. But it was his eyes that captured her attention. They were an unusual shade of gray-blue, like storm clouds over the ocean, and they held an intensity that seemed to see through superficial pleasantry straight to the core of a person. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Olivia felt an unexpected jolt of electricity, a recognition she could not explain. His expression remained professionally neutral, but something flickered in those storm cloud eyes before he continued walking, his assistant struggling to keep pace while rattling off statistics and reports. "Did you feel that?" Tessa materialized at her elbow, speaking quietly enough that only Olivia could hear. "Feel what?" Olivia asked, though her heart was beating faster than normal. Sebastian Hayes just looked at you like you were the only person in this entire hospital. I have worked here for 6 years and have never seen him look at anyone that way. Olivia shook her head, trying to dismiss the ridiculous notion. He was simply looking down the hallway. We happened to make eye contact. That is all. But even as she said the words, she could not forget the intensity of that brief connection, the way her skin had tingled under his gaze, the strange feeling that something significant had just occurred. More letters arrive. The letters continued appearing over the following weeks, each one more personal than the last. Olivia found them in the most unexpected places. One was tucked into a patient chart she was reviewing. Another appeared folded inside her lunch bag, though she was certain she had packed it herself that morning. A third was slipped between the pages of a medical journal in the staff library. Your laughter yesterday reminded me that joy can exist even in places built for healing pain. When you comforted that frightened child, speaking softly about brave knights and magical dragons, you transformed a sterile examination room into a place of wonder and safety. Each note revealed details that only someone with intimate access to her daily life could know. The observations were specific, thoughtful, and incredibly romantic. Olivia began keeping them in a small wooden box her grandmother had given her, reading them by lamplight in her modest apartment, trying to decode clues about the author's identity. Tessa had developed an elaborate theory board. It has to be Dr. James from cardiology. He always requests you for his difficult patients. Dr. James is engaged to the radiologist on the 3rd floor, Olivia pointed out. Fine. What about Timothy from the pharmacy? He turns bright red whenever you pick up medications. Olivia laughed. Timothy is 23 and still lives with his parents. These letters are written by someone with more life experience and maturity. What she did not admit, even to her best friend, was that she sometimes caught herself watching Sebastian Hayes during his increasingly frequent visits to the cardiac care unit. There was something in the way he observed the department, his gaze occasionally lingering on her station just a fraction longer than seemed necessary. Once she had turned quickly and found him staring directly at her with an expression of such raw longing that it stole her breath. Then his professional mask had returned, and he continued his inspection as though nothing had happened. It was impossible, of course. Billionaires like Sebastian Hayes did not fall in love with ordinary nurses. They dated supermodels and socialites, women who understood charity events and investment strategies. Still, Olivia could not shake the growing suspicion that somehow their lives were becoming unexpectedly intertwined, that fate was writing a story neither of them had anticipated, the invitation to another world. 3 weeks after the first letter appeared, Olivia found an unexpected envelope waiting in her locker. Unlike the cream-colored notes filled with romantic observations, this was a formal invitation printed on heavy cardstock with gold embossing. The annual Riverside Medical Center Charity Gala, an event she had heard about but never attended, was being held at the Grand Harmony Hotel on Saturday evening. All staff members were encouraged to participate. Tessa snatched the invitation from her hands before Olivia could protest. You are absolutely going. No arguments. This is the perfect opportunity to identify your mysterious admirer. He will be there, watching you, and maybe he will finally reveal himself. I do not have anything appropriate to wear to such an event, Olivia protested weakly, though part of her felt a flutter of excitement at the possibility. Leave that to me, Tessa declared with determination. By Saturday afternoon, Tessa had dragged Olivia to 3 consignment shops before finding the perfect dress. It was a deep sapphire blue that brought out the warmth in Olivia's brown eyes, with a fitted bodice that flowed into a graceful skirt reaching her ankles. The dress was elegant without being too flashy, sophisticated yet still true to who Olivia was. You look absolutely stunning, Tessa announced as she helped Olivia pin her auburn hair into an elegant twist, leaving a few soft curls framing her face. Tonight, everything changes. I can feel it. Entering a different universe. The Grand Harmony Hotel ballroom took Olivia's breath away. Crystal chandeliers cast thousands of light fragments across the polished marble floors. Women in designer gowns and men in perfectly tailored tuxedos filled the space, champagne glasses catching the golden light. Soft classical music played from a live orchestra positioned on a raised platform. This was a world Olivia had only seen in movies, so far removed from her daily reality that she felt like an intruder. Champagne? A server appeared with a silver tray. Olivia accepted a glass, taking a small sip of the bubbling liquid. Tessa, wearing a striking red dress that matched her bold personality, squeezed her arm encouragingly. "Breathe. You belong here just as much as anyone else." But Olivia was not convinced. She watched doctors and administrators mingling effortlessly with wealthy donors, speaking a language of investments and international travel that she barely understood. Then her eyes found Sebastian Hayes across the crowded ballroom, and everything else faded into background noise. He wore a tuxedo that fit him perfectly, emphasizing his athletic build and commanding presence. But what caught Olivia's attention was the beautiful woman clinging to his arm. She had platinum blonde hair swept into an elaborate updo, wearing a silver gown that probably cost more than Olivia earned in 6 months. The woman laughed at something Sebastian said, gazing up at him with obvious adoration and possessive familiarity. "That is Victoria Ashworth," Tessa whispered, following Olivia's gaze. "Her father sits on the hospital board. Rumor has it their families have been planning a merger for years, combining Hayes Medical Holdings with Ashworth Pharmaceutical Industries. Business and romance wrapped into one convenient package." Something painful twisted in Olivia's chest. Of course Sebastian Hayes had someone like Victoria Ashworth. Of course he belonged to a world where relationships were strategic alliances rather than emotional connections. She took another sip of champagne, trying to ignore the sharp disappointment cutting through her earlier excitement. An unexpected dance. Olivia Mitchell. She turned to find Sebastian Hayes standing directly behind her, having somehow crossed the crowded ballroom without her noticing. Up close, he was even more striking, his gray-blue eyes intense in the golden chandelier light. His expression was carefully controlled, but something flickered beneath the surface, an emotion he was struggling to contain. "Mr. Hayes," she managed, grateful her voice remained steady despite her racing heart. "Please, call me Sebastian." His gaze traveled over her dress, lingering for a moment before he controlled himself. "I did not expect to see you here tonight. I am glad you decided to attend." "Tessa convinced me it would be good for staff morale," Olivia replied, acutely aware that Victoria Ashworth was watching them with narrowed eyes from across the room. Sebastian seemed to gather his courage before speaking again. "Would you dance with me?" The question came abruptly, almost desperately. Olivia's heart hammered against her ribs. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was inappropriate, that she should politely decline, that dancing with the hospital owner while his beautiful companion watched would only lead to trouble. "I do not think that would be appropriate, Mr. Hayes. Your date might object." "Victoria is not my date. She is a family acquaintance." Sebastian extended his hand, and despite every reasonable objection, Olivia found herself placing her fingers in his palm. His hand was warm and strong, enveloping hers completely as he led her onto the dance floor. A moment outside reality. The moment Sebastian's hand settled at the small of her back, everything else disappeared. The crowded ballroom, the watching eyes, the whispered conversations all faded until there was only the music and the man holding her. They moved together with unexpected grace, as though they had been dancing together for years rather than seconds. "You are very good at this," Olivia murmured, focusing on his shoulder rather than meeting those penetrating storm cloud eyes. "My mother insisted on ballroom lessons when I was young," Sebastian replied, his voice low and close to her ear. "I hated every single minute of those lessons until approximately 30 seconds ago." Heat flooded Olivia's cheeks. "You should not say things like that." "Why not?" "Because you are the hospital owner and I am just a nurse. Because you have someone like Victoria Ashworth waiting for you. Because this entire situation is completely inappropriate. Sebastian's hand tightened fractionally on her back, pulling her infinitesimally closer. What if I told you that Victoria Ashworth means absolutely nothing to me? That my family's expectations feel like a cage I have been trying to escape for years? That there is only one woman in this entire ballroom I want to be dancing with, and I am currently holding her in my arms? Olivia's breath caught in her throat. She finally looked up, finding his face closer than she expected, his expression stripped of its usual cold authority. In its place was something vulnerable and raw, an emotion so intense it both thrilled and terrified her. "You cannot mean that," she whispered. "I have never meant anything more in my entire life." His thumb traced a small circle against her back, sending shivers racing down her spine. "Olivia, I need to tell you something. I should have told you weeks ago, but I was afraid of how you might react." The interruption. The music swelled around them, the moment stretching taut with possibility and anticipation. Olivia's mind raced, connecting dots she had been afraid to connect. The letters, the lingering glances during his hospital visits, the specific observations that only someone paying close attention could make. Could it truly be possible that Sebastian Hayes was her mysterious admirer? "Sebastian, are you the one who has been writing those letters?" Before he could answer, Victoria's sharp voice cut through the music like a blade through silk. "There you are, darling." She appeared beside them, her smile brittle and cold, her eyes flashing with barely concealed anger. "Sebastian, your father has been looking everywhere for you. Something about an urgent board announcement that cannot wait." Sebastian's expression shuddered immediately, the vulnerable man disappearing behind his billionaire mask. His hands dropped from Olivia's waist as though she had burned him. "Of course. Excuse me, Olivia." He walked away without looking back, leaving Olivia standing alone on the dance floor with her heart pounding and 1,000 questions burning through her mind. Victoria shot her a triumphant look before following Sebastian into the crowd, her hand possessively gripping his arm. Tessa materialized with another glass of champagne. "What just happened? You two looked like you were about to kiss in front of 500 people." "I do not know," Olivia admitted, accepting the drink with shaking hands. "Tessa, I think Sebastian might be the one writing the notes." Tessa's eyes widened. "The billionaire hospital owner?" "Olivia, that seems impossible. Although, it would explain why the letters are so well written and why the person has access to everywhere you go in the hospital. But why would Sebastian Hayes be interested in you? Not that you are not amazing," she added quickly. "But you come from completely different worlds." "I know. That is exactly what makes this so impossible." Overheard revelations. Olivia stayed another hour before the noise and champagne began giving her a headache. She told Tessa she would take a taxi home, wanting time alone with her tumultuous thoughts. The hospital parking garage was nearly empty when she stopped to retrieve her phone from her locker, deciding to change out of her beautiful dress before heading home. She was walking toward the exit when she heard raised voices echoing from the stairwell. One voice belonged to Sebastian, tight with controlled anger. The other was an older man, cultured and commanding, speaking with the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "You will marry Victoria, Sebastian. The merger depends on it. Hayes Medical Holdings combined with Ashworth Pharmaceutical will create an unstoppable healthcare empire. I will not marry someone I do not love simply to satisfy a business arrangement." Sebastian's voice was steel wrapped in ice. "Love?" The older man laughed bitterly. "You sound like a foolish child. This is about legacy, about building something that transcends individual desires. Your mother understood duty. Why cannot you?" "Perhaps because I watched duty destroy whatever happiness she might have found. I will not repeat her mistakes." "And what about that nurse? Do you think I have not noticed how you watch her? She is a distraction, Sebastian, nothing more. Someone from her background could never understand our world, our responsibilities. She would be destroyed by the pressure, and you would resent her for not being strong enough. Olivia pressed her hand against her mouth, stopping the gasp that threatened to escape. She should leave, should not be listening to this private conversation, but her feet seemed rooted to the floor. "You do not know anything about her," Sebastian said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Olivia has more strength and genuine goodness in her little finger than Victoria possesses in her entire body. She transforms every life she touches through simple kindness and dedication. She is exactly what this family needs, what I need." "Then you are a bigger fool than I thought." Olivia heard footsteps approaching and quickly ducked behind a pillar, her heart racing. She watched Sebastian's father stride past, his face set in angry lines. A moment later, Sebastian emerged from the stairwell, his shoulders slumped in a way she had never seen before, all his usual confidence stripped away. He looked utterly alone. Without thinking, Olivia stepped out from her hiding place. "Sebastian." He spun around, shock and then horror crossing his face as he realized she had overheard everything. "Olivia, I can explain. You have been writing the letters," she said softly. It was not a question. He nodded slowly, his storm cloud eyes filled with vulnerability and fear. "Every single one. I know I should have told you sooner, should have been honest from the beginning. But I was afraid that if you knew the truth, you would reject me before giving us a chance." Olivia's world tilted on its axis, everything she thought she understood shifting into a new and terrifying configuration. The cold billionaire hospital owner had been pouring his heart onto paper, revealing depths of emotion and observation she never would have suspected existed beneath his professional exterior. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you are real, Olivia. In a world full of people performing kindness for recognition or advancement, you give freely without expecting anything in return. You see people, truly see them, and you make them feel valued and cared for. You made me feel seen for the first time in my entire life, and I fell in love with you before I even realized what was happening." The confession hung between them, honest and raw and impossibly complicated. Olivia's mind spun with the implications, the obstacles, the impossibility of a relationship between two people from such different worlds. But her heart, her traitorous heart, whispered that maybe, just maybe, love could be enough to bridge any divide. The morning after truth. Olivia barely slept that night. She lay in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling while replaying every moment of the evening. Sebastian's confession echoed in her mind, his vulnerable expression burned into her memory. The wooden box containing all his letters sat on her nightstand, and she found herself reading them again as dawn broke over the city, seeing them now through a completely different lens. Each word took on new meaning knowing they came from Sebastian Hayes, a man who controlled a healthcare empire worth billions yet found himself helpless before his own emotions. The contrast between his public persona and the tender soul revealed in these letters was almost impossible to reconcile. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tessa. "Emergency coffee meeting before shift. Do not even think about saying no." 30 minutes later, Olivia sat across from her best friend in their favorite coffee shop near the hospital. Tessa studied her face with concern. "You look like you did not sleep at all. What happened after I left last night?" Olivia took a deep breath and told her everything. The overheard conversation between Sebastian and his father, the confrontation in the parking garage, Sebastian's confession about writing the letters, his declaration of love. Tessa's expression cycled through shock, disbelief, excitement, and finally worry. "This is like something from a romantic movie," Tessa said slowly. "Except this is your real life, Olivia. Sebastian Hayes is not just some wealthy man. He is a billionaire with family expectations, business obligations, and a world of complications you cannot even imagine. Are you prepared for what being with him would mean?" "I do not even know if I want to be with him," Olivia replied, though the words felt like a lie even as she spoke them. "We come from completely different worlds. His father is right about that much. I would never fit into his life. But does he fit into yours?" Tessa asked gently. Maybe that is the real question. Not whether you can adapt to his world, but whether he is willing to truly be part of yours. An unexpected visitor. The cardiac care unit was unusually quiet when Olivia arrived for her shift. She threw herself into work, checking on patients, administering medications, updating charts. Keeping busy helped quiet the chaos in her mind. Mrs. Patterson was being discharged after her successful recovery, and Olivia spent extra time going over her home care instructions. "You are an angel," Mrs. Patterson said, squeezing Olivia's hand. "I do not know what I would have done without your kindness these past weeks. You did all the hard work by following doctor's orders and staying positive," Olivia replied with a warm smile. "I just helped along the way." After Mrs. Patterson left with her family, Olivia returned to the nurse's station to find Tessa staring wide-eyed down the hallway. "Do not look now, but Sebastian Hayes is here, and he is walking directly toward you. He does not look like he is here for a routine inspection." Olivia's heart jumped into her throat. She turned to see Sebastian striding down the corridor, still wearing the expensive suit from earlier that morning, but his tie was loosened and his hair slightly disheveled, as though he had been running his hands through it. His gray-blue eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Olivia, may I speak with you privately?" His voice was formal, but she could hear the underlying emotion threatening to break through. "I am working," she replied, hating how her voice trembled slightly. "Please. It will only take a few minutes." Something in his expression, a rawness and desperation, made her nod. She followed him to a small consultation room used for private family conversations. The moment the door closed behind them, Sebastian turned to face her, and she could see the sleepless night written in the shadows under his eyes. The truth laid bare. "I have been thinking about what my father said," Sebastian began, his words tumbling out as though he had been rehearsing them all night. "About how you could never understand my world, about the pressure destroying you, about duty and legacy and all the things that are supposed to matter more than personal happiness." Olivia's heart sank, preparing herself for the rejection she had known was inevitable. "And I realized he is absolutely wrong about everything," Sebastian continued, taking a step closer. "You understand the only things that truly matter. Compassion, kindness, seeing people as human beings rather than assets or obstacles. You have taught me more about what is genuinely important in the months I have been watching you than my entire expensive education ever did." "Sebastian," Olivia whispered, but he gently raised his hand. "Please, let me finish before I lose my courage. I have spent my entire life doing what was expected of me. The right schools, the right career, the right social circles. I built an empire because that was what Hayes men do. But I was empty inside, going through motions without feeling anything real. Then I saw you comforting a frightened patient, speaking softly about hope and healing, and something inside me woke up after years of sleeping." He pulled out a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket, his hands shaking slightly. "I wrote you another letter last night. I was going to leave it in your locker like all the others because I am apparently a coward who finds it easier to express feelings on paper than face to face. But I think you deserve to hear this directly." Sebastian unfolded the paper, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "Olivia, you asked me why you. The answer is because you are everything I never knew I was searching for. You are genuine in a world of pretense, warm in a landscape of calculated coldness, brave in ways that have nothing to do with money or power. You face death and suffering every day yet still find reasons to smile, to hope, to believe in goodness. You have shown me what it means to truly live rather than simply exist." Tears began sliding down Olivia's cheeks. "But your family will never accept me. Your father made that very clear. I do not know anything about charity galas or business mergers or the world you come from." "Then teach me about your world instead," Sebastian said, closing the distance between them. "Teach me how to find joy in simple moments. Show me how to see people the way you do. Help me become someone worthy of the love you give so freely to everyone around you." The choice that changes everything. I am scared, Olivia admitted, her voice breaking. I am scared of losing myself in your world. I am scared of disappointing you when I inevitably make mistakes navigating your social circles. I am scared that your father is right, that the pressure will destroy whatever feelings you have for me. Sebastian gently cupped her face, his thumbs wiping away her tears. I am terrified too. I am scared of failing you, of not being able to protect you from the ugliness that sometimes comes with wealth and public scrutiny. I am scared that I have been emotionally closed off for so long that I might not know how to properly love you the way you deserve. But Olivia, I would rather face those fears with you than spend the rest of my life safe and alone. What about Victoria? What about the merger your father wants? I told my father this morning that I will not marry Victoria, that the merger will have to happen through business channels alone or not at all. He threatened to remove me as CEO, to cut me off from the family fortune. I told him to do whatever he feels necessary because I will not sacrifice love for money or legacy. Olivia's eyes widened. Sebastian, you cannot throw away everything you have built. I am not throwing anything away. I am choosing what truly matters. Besides, I built that empire once. If necessary, I can build another one, perhaps with better values this time. He smiled softly. I have enough money personally to live comfortably for several lifetimes. What I do not have is you, and that is the only poverty I cannot accept. The sincerity in his voice, the vulnerability in his storm-cloud eyes, broke down the last of Olivia's defenses. She had spent her entire life believing that love should be practical, sensible, fitting neatly into expected patterns. But standing in that small consultation room, she realized that the greatest love stories were never practical or sensible. I cannot promise to fit perfectly into your world, she said softly. I do not want you to fit into my world. I want us to build a new world together, one that takes the best parts of both our lives and creates something neither of us could have imagined alone. Olivia took a shaky breath, feeling as though she stood at the edge of a cliff, about to leap into unknown territory. Then she thought about all those letters, the beautiful words revealing a soul that understood her more deeply than anyone ever had. She thought about the way Sebastian looked at her, as though she was precious and irreplaceable. She thought about the courage it took for him to risk everything he had built for the possibility of genuine love. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Hope flared in Sebastian's eyes. Okay, let us try. Let us see if we can build that new world together. A new beginning. Sebastian pulled her into his arms, holding her as though she might disappear if he loosened his grip. Olivia rested her head against his chest, hearing his heart beating rapidly, matching the rhythm of her own. They stood like that for a long moment, two people from different worlds choosing to take a leap of faith together. I should get back to work, Olivia finally said, though she made no move to leave his embrace. I know. Sebastian pressed a kiss to the top of her head. But I want to do this properly. Olivia Mitchell, would you have dinner with me tonight? A real date, not stolen moments in hospital corridors or dances at charity galas. She pulled back enough to look up at him, seeing the hope and nervousness mixing in his expression. I would love that. I will pick you up at 7. Wear something comfortable. I think we have had enough of fancy restaurants and formal events for now. As Olivia left the consultation room, she found Tessa waiting with an enormous grin. You said yes, did you not? I can see it written all over your face. I said yes, Olivia confirmed, unable to stop smiling despite her lingering fears and uncertainties. This is either going to be the most beautiful love story or a complete disaster, Tessa observed. Maybe both, Olivia laughed. But I think it will be worth it either way. 6 months later. The spring sunshine streamed through the windows of the newly opened Hayes Community Health Center, a state-of-the-art facility providing free medical care to underserved neighborhoods. Sebastian had announced the project 3 months earlier, shocking the medical community by pledging half his personal fortune to creating accessible healthcare for those who needed it most. Olivia stood in the bright, welcoming lobby, watching families arrive for appointments. Children played in the corner with toys and books while their parents checked in with friendly staff. This was the world she and Sebastian had built together, combining his resources with her understanding of what patients truly needed. Sebastian appeared beside her, sliding his arm around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "I am thinking about how strange life can be. 6 months ago, I was just a nurse receiving anonymous love letters. Now I am helping run a community health center with a man who turned his entire life upside down for me." "I turned my life right side up," Sebastian corrected gently. "Everything before you was upside down. I just did not realize it until you showed me what truly living meant." His father had eventually come around, grudgingly admitting that Sebastian seemed happier than he had ever seen him. Victoria had married someone else within 3 months, proving she had never truly cared for Sebastian personally. The business merger fell through, but Hayes Medical Holdings continued thriving under Sebastian's leadership, now with a stronger focus on patient care over pure profit. "Are you happy?" Sebastian asked, the question he posed almost every day, as though he needed constant reassurance that he had not made a mistake dragging her into his complicated world. Olivia turned to face him fully, seeing the man behind the billionaire exterior. The man who wrote her love letters because he struggled to express emotions verbally. The man who had learned to find joy in simple moments like cooking dinner together or taking long walks through the park. The man who had risked everything for the possibility of genuine love. "I am happier than I ever imagined possible," she answered honestly. "Not because of the money or the opportunities or any of the external things. I am happy because I found someone who sees me, truly sees me, and loves me anyway." "Loves you because of who you are, not anyway," Sebastian corrected, leaning down to kiss her softly. "You taught me that love is not about finding someone perfect but finding someone perfectly right for you." As they stood together in the health center they had built, surrounded by families receiving care they desperately needed, Olivia realized that the greatest love stories were not about princes rescuing princesses or fairy tale endings. They were about two imperfect people choosing each other every single day, building a life that honored both their differences and their shared values. The nurse with the secret letters had indeed never imagined the heartless millionaire was watching. But she also never imagined that beneath his cold exterior beat a heart capable of transforming not just for love, but through love. Together, they proved that when two people are willing to meet each other halfway, no boundary is too great to cross, no difference too significant to overcome. Their love story was not perfect or easy. There were still difficult moments, cultural clashes, and learning curves. But it was real and honest and built on a foundation of genuine understanding. And in the end, that was all that mattered. The end.